Welcome back to Calm Coding, the weekly cybersecurity podcast where we filter the noise and deliver the most critical news and stories you need to know from the front lines of digital defense. This deep dive is essential. We're going to be looking at three major trends from just the last week. First, how generative AI is fundamentally changing attacker tactics on platforms like GitHub.
Yeah, that one's a big one.
Then second, why everyone running major network devices really needs to check for some urgent, actively exploited critical flaws.
And we do mean urgent.
And finally, how the persistent threat of ransomware is translating directly into new national defense policy.
The sources you share this week, they really show a concerning strategic shift. I mean, we are seeing less of that opportunistic broad scanning.
Right.
More of these surgical, complex supply chain attacks. And they're explicitly targeting two key groups, developers and security researchers, using the very repositories they trust.
And at the same time, the infrastructure operators are in a race against active exploitation.
Exactly. The common thread here is that attackers are targeting the places we rely on most, whether that's our code, our network perimeter, or, even the integrity of our political processes.
Okay, let's unpack this. And we have to start with what Kaspersky found lurking in the developer heartland. GitHub. They discovered 15 malicious repositories.
Right, and these were meticulously set up to pose as legitimate proof-of-concept exploits. POCs, for known high-profile vulnerabilities.
That finding alone is worrisome, but it's the method, right? That's what elevates this from just standard malware.
Oh, absolutely. The attackers weren't just reusing old code. They were leveraging generative AI to actually craft these exploits.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Why use Gen AI for a simple posse?
Because AI doesn't just write code, it writes believable code. And it generates these high-quality social engineering lures at a massive scale. It virtually eliminates the cost barrier for lower-skilled actors. These fake posses weren't sloppy at all.
So they were sophisticated enough to fool people who are actually looking for this stuff.
Exactly. Security researchers, pen testers, or even other criminals looking for a shortcut. The targets were searching for things like the Windows MS-HTML bug.
So it's an attack that exploits not incompetence, but opportunism. The victim is looking for a quick win, a head start, and they get malware instead. So how did the delivery actually work?
It was layered. The victims download a password-protected ZIP archive.
Which is pretty common practice, right? To avoid the scanners.
Yeah, exactly, to avoid that immediate detection. Inside, there's a decoy file. Maybe a legitimate-looking DLL or reatomy, but the real star is the malicious dropper named ransomware.exe.
And that dropper doesn't waste any time. We saw a high level of premeditation here.
It really doesn't. Once it's executed, it immediately elevates its own privileges, and, this is critical, it disables Windows Defender.
Right, clears the path.
Only then does it download the final payload, WebRAT malware.
And WebRAT is, well, it's the whole package.
It really is. Yeah. The researchers found it functions both as a traditional backdoor for future access and as a comprehensive info stealer. We're talking about pervasive compromise.
So stealing credentials for Steam, Discord, Telegram.
Targeting crypto wallets, browser add-ons. They even built in surveillance tools like using the victim's webcam to spy and grabbing screenshots.
Okay.
It's designed for deep, persistent espionage.
This campaign, which started around September 2025, it just shows that even though GitHub is removing these specific repos, the fundamental risk is still there. But the danger isn't just in code shared on platforms like GitHub, it's also in the dependencies developers pull into their projects. Which brings us to the Node Package Manager Registry, NPM.
Oh yeah, a massive attack targeting WhatsApp users. This is a textbook supply chain hijack.
Okay, so what was the package?
It's called Lotus Bail, and it was a direct evil twin of a really popular, legitimate open source library called Whiskey Sockets Baileys.
Which is used for what, exactly?
It's used by developers to interact with the WhatsApp API.
So developers who wanted to use a legitimate WhatsApp client dependency mistakenly pulled in this malicious fork thinking it was the original. What was the damage?
Well, the package looked and functioned almost identically to the real one, but it wrapped the legitimate WebSocket client. And that wrapper was programmed to do one thing.
Steal everything.
Basically. intercept and steal WhatsApp authentication tokens and session keys. This allowed the attacker to capture every message, every contact, every media file, and just forward them all to a third-party server.
That is deeply alarming. But what stands out most here is how long the compromise could last.
Yes, what's fascinating is the persistence mechanism. And this is crucial for you to understand because it's a huge lesson in session management security.
Go on.
The attack leveraged WhatsApp's legitimate multi-device pairing feature, the same one you use to connect your phone to WhatsApp web. By stealing the tokens, the package essentially created a permanent linked device for the attacker.
Wow. So it's like leaving a key under the mat even after you think you've locked the door?
Exactly. And this link persists even if the developer realizes what happened and immediately removes the malicious package from their code. The attacker's device stays silently linked to the victim's WhatsApp account.
Until you manually go into your settings and kill it.
Until you manually terminate it.
Yeah.
This isn't just a code vulnerability. It transforms into an identity and surveillance issue that survives the standard mitigation steps.
And the scale. 56,000 downloads over 6 months. That's just immense. It really underscores that trust in open source has to be validated. Always. That NPM story is a profound warning for the developer community. Let's pivot now from compromised dependencies to high-stakes infrastructure and the critical immediate need for patching. We have an urgent situation with WatchGuard Firebox firewalls.
This is a major issue, yeah. A critical zero-day remote code execution, or RCE, flaw. And RCE is the big one.
It means an attacker can run commands on your system from anywhere, often without even needing to log in first.
Precisely. This specific flaw, CVE 2025-12733, scores a 9.3 out of 10 in severity. So, yeah, it's bad.
We're talking about an unauthenticated attacker being able to essentially take over a critical network device. What's the specific technical weakness here?
The vulnerability is an out-of-bounds write.
In non-technical terms.
Okay, think of a program's memory as a series of labeled containers. An out-of-bounds write means the attacker tricks the device into writing data outside the container it was assigned.
And that spilled data.
It sneaks malicious commands directly into the device's brain, letting them execute arbitrary code with maximum privileges.
And crucially, the risk is tied to specific, very common enterprise configurations.
That's right. The vulnerability affects users running mobile user VPN with IKE2, or branch office VPN using IKE2 with a dynamic gateway peer. So these are modern secure protocols, but that complexity is what the attackers exploited.
And because this flaw is being actively exploited in the wild, the U.S. government response was immediate. CISA added it to their KEV catalog.
That KEV catalog inclusion is the strongest possible signal of urgency. It required U.S. federal agencies to patch or stop using vulnerable devices by December 26th, a really tight deadline.
So for any network operators listening, even if you can't patch immediately,
you need to apply mitigations. Disable those dynamic peer BO VPNs and dramatically tighten your firewall policies until you can get the full patch applied.
Okay, so moving from critical network devices to another growing risk area, customer-facing AI. We have news from the Eurostar AI-powered chatbot.
We do. Pen test partners found that the chatbot was fundamentally flawed in how it handled input.
The first flaw was weak validation. The bot only bothered to validate the most recent message. Why is that bad?
It meant that old messages in the conversation history messages the bot would use for context could be altered by an attacker to contain malicious prompts after they were already sent.
That's a brilliant lateral thinking attack.
It really is. The bot would then process that altered, older message, potentially leading to system info disclosure. And the second flaw was just a straightforward HTML injection, letting them run JavaScript in the chat window.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this incident perfectly illustrates the security debt organizations are taking on when they rush to adopt new AI tools.
Absolutely. Eurostar was lucky. They were quick to point out that customer data was never at risk because the chatbot wasn't linked to the customer information database.
But that raises a major question for everyone listening, right?
It does. What happens tomorrow? As organizations try to make these bots smarter by integrating them more deeply, linking them to order histories, payment systems, that security risk stops being theoretical and becomes, well, existential. This is how the cloud attack surface expands faster than security teams can manage it.
And moving from those system vulnerabilities to their pervasive real-world impact, let's turn our attention back to the relentless threat of ransomware, especially when it targets critical services like healthcare.
We saw a clear example with DXS International, a major tech supplier for the National Health Service in England. They suffered a ransomware attack discovered in mid-December.
The good news, if you can call it that, is the company reported minimal impact on clinical services.
Right, but the threat actor, a group called DevMan, claimed responsibility on the dark web, and they alleged they stole 300 gigabytes of company data.
So, what does that claim signify?
That is the standard setup for a double extortion attempt. They lock up the systems, and they threaten to publicly leak all that sensitive data, forcing the victim to pay to protect their reputation and avoid fines.
And this isn't the first time the NHS supply chain has been hit like this. We
Yeah.
only have to look back a couple of years.
Exactly. The 2022 attack on Advanced Computer Group that led to significant disruptions to critical services, including the NHS 111 non-emergency hotline.
And that incident where patient phone numbers were exposed later cost the organization a hefty $3.27 million fine from the ICO.
The message is clear. The ripple effect of attacking one supplier can paralyze huge portions of critical national infrastructure.
That continuous systemic threat is exactly why we need to look at the U.S. government's response, specifically the signing of the $900 billion 2026 National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA.
Absolutely. This bill shows that cyber threats are now inseparable from national defense. It includes several critical, tangible steps to harden the government.
For instance, it mandates that within 90 days, mobile phones used by senior government officials have to be equipped with enhanced cybersecurity protections.
And what do those enhanced protections actually entail?
We're talking about mandatory, robust end-to-end encryption, continuous monitoring to detect anomalies in real time, and persistent identifier obfuscation.
Meaning making it harder for foreign adversaries to trap a specific device or person.
Exactly. They're trying to raise the cost for those sophisticated actors.
And beyond protecting the devices carried by people, the bill also directly addresses the emerging threats we discussed earlier, like those amplified by Gen AI.
Precisely. The legislation mandates the Pentagon create a structured, risk-based framework for all AI and machine learning tech they procure. It's a direct response to how easily state-sponsored groups can use AI to build better attack tools.
Or to sabotage AI systems themselves. They're building guidance specifically to defend against technology theft and sabotage.
And finally, regarding command structure, the bill protects the dual-hat leadership structure between the NSA and U.S. Cyber Command.
And that provision is a statement of strategic intent. It ensures optimal coordination between intelligence gathering, the NSA, and military cyber operations, Cyber Command. It's designed to protect that unity of effort.
This entire section really just reinforces the theme here. The sophistication of attacks has now reached a level where national policy is scrambling to keep up with the technical realities. So, to summarize our deep dive, we've covered three main learning pillars. First, the subtle AI-enhanced dangers lurking in trusted code environments like GitHub and NPM.
Then second, the immediate requirement for patching critical RCE flaws like that WatchGuard issue that is being actively exploited.
And third, the systemic battle against ransomware and espionage that is now influencing national defense policy.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner? I think the core takeaway here is that attackers are increasingly leveraging automation in trusted environments to target highly technical users. The gatekeepers.
You just can't trust a dependency because it's popular or it's on GitHub. That code needs to be scrutinized.
And that leads us to our final thought, something for you to mull over. We talked about how that malicious NPM package, Lotus Bail, succeeded because the attacker's device link persisted through WhatsApp's pairing mechanism, even after the developer removed the bad code.
Which suggests that simply deleting bad software just isn't enough anymore.
Exactly. So the provocative question is this. What systemic security measures, beyond just deleting the code, must developers and platforms prioritize to prevent this kind of unauthorized long-term persistence? Whether it's through WhatsApp pairing or other device linking protocols, how do we build security that addresses the persistent connection, not just the initial infection?
That is the challenge that defines modern secure development. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the source material. We'll be back next week with more essential cybersecurity insights on calm coding.